Hello, how are you? Ignore that I'm already laughing. Why is that happening to me lately? Oh my god. So, today we'll be dwelling in two topics simultaneously. Look, just come along with me on this one, okay? You know, when you were young and you would search for anime girls online, you know that experience. I don't even know if anyone still experiences that nowadays. I honestly hope people do. I don't even know why. Maybe it's just my own nostalgia speaking more so than anything. But yeah, that's the level of art I wish to achieve at some point in my life. Right, even though let's ignore the fact that I didn't know what artists were back then. I just thought that everything was a screenshot from a show. Let's ignore that. At some point, I would figure it out, okay? So, the top skill anime art styles from artists like Rosuuri, Hyanna Natsu, Neko Rina, Sasuchi95, Inntary, Kuri Nyaan, to name a few of them, of course. But just that top level skill of anime art style. So, in this video, I'll be trying to achieve that skill level. Well, try to imitate the type of rendering they have to make their characters look real, believable, and dynamic. Let's see if I can get there. Even though their art styles don't look alike at all, there are certain techniques which seem similar in the rendering of it. That being a good use of both soft shadows and sharp shadows, which is something that I used to use and then stop at some point, but we'll get into that later, okay? You know what I found interesting in this entire thing where I try to learn what is it called? Art study. That's what I'm trying to say. Oh god, my mind doesn't work. I found it really interesting finding out that our techniques aren't so dissimilar. We all use the spiky shapes for our rendering. The big difference being not just the way we stylize our drawings, aka the way we draw, or art styles in that sense. If we exclude the entire rendering part of the art styles. But they all have just way more patience to clean their art up and polish things than I do. Which, if you follow me, I don't just do that. I just paint things all willy-nilly, and if something looks and resembles what I'm trying to convey, then I am fine with things. So to give that feeling even more of what I don't know, I add an anime style background. Oh yeah, to give that feeling of things looking very just anime and polished and clean and just that very lively, this is this. To give that feeling, I add an anime style background, which I'm pretty sure is an Ibis Paint asset. What was I saying? The background. I just changed the color of the background using the gradient map, which I learned in my Artex video, which I still am surprised by how I never thought about it. I might just not explore my art programs enough. Krita has so many options too. I should be more explorative with it and try some things out. Actually, today I was searching up some stuff because there is an Adobe Illustrator thing, which is called something about tracing, which I wondered if Krita has that, because that is perfect for when you want to make a logo, but you use your sketchbook more so than your digital art program. That would be perfect for my stuff, because a lot of times, well, not a lot, but enough times, I draw sort of logo stuff in my sketchbooks, and it would be really practical to use that to transfer things from traditional to digital. I don't know. I found some things on Reddit that could be helpful in that sense. I have not tried them yet, so at some point I shall try that. I don't think that I would record that. I don't think that it would be useful. Maybe if I decide to make a video on story covers or something, I don't know. Maybe then I could. We'll see. I could come up with something, right? But that's not the point. So this entire thing, this illustration, this entire doing, reminded me a lot of the way that I used to draw back in 2021 and 2022. I had more patience back then. I also had more time back then. Then something happened, okay? I think I know what happened. 2023 happened. That's my issue. But I don't know, the actual finished drawing of my own drawing here, it just reminded me a lot of the way that I used to draw back in those years. I don't know why, maybe it's because back then I actually used to use a good mix of soft shadows and sharp shadows. I don't know. So now you might be wondering, right? Changing topics a bit. But Angel, why are you drawing fairies? Well, if you didn't watch my first sketchbook tour video, you know. 2 of my own characters popped up a lot in that one. 2 characters, which are pretty much dead at this point because I never drew them after 2020. 2 characters from a story of mine called A New Beginning. And well, my own nostalgia made me want to draw them again after seeing them in that one. To shortly talk about what this story was about, it's not a good story, okay? Just don't think that this is a masterpiece or anything, because it sure isn't. None of my stories really are, if I have to say so myself. I don't think that I'm at any level of genius, and neither do I think that I have the excuse to call myself in that way, or call others with that. I just don't think it's really fitting for me to do that sort of stuff. So, A New Beginning is a story starring Tigra Harper, which we can obviously tell who is Tigra here. You know, the striped tiger-like Egyptian mole cat. And Mew Violet, her girlfriend, who we see at the bottom corner there. Who are both involved in a weird cult worshipping a parallel god, type of god, who has nothing of parallel actually, but spirals in their design. And this cult would start sacrificing the townsfolk for this god. One of my cousin's characters was actually going to be involved at the time, in which they were going to slowly find out that the murders happening in town were done by this cult, and that Tigra was involved, and they would have become really close friends at that point. So it's like this thing where morals come into hand. Do you help your friend dispose of a corpse, or do you bring them into the police station? The answer is the police station, by the way. And I've been thinking of bringing them back to my stories list by changing the story a bit probably, since right now I feel like it's very much full of cliches and not exactly in a good sense. Sometimes stories really benefit from cliches, okay, and sometimes just cliches are fun. Sometimes you want that old nostalgic feeling of everything has been done, but you want that feeling that it gave you back then, and that is fine. But I think that the story right now is just really not benefiting from it. So, I don't know. I might change that. One thing is for sure, though. I want to change their personalities up because, my god, they're very unlikable. But we'll see what I do, right? So as I kept rendering, adding the shadows this time around, I used a pink hue for it, since the entire environment is on the pinker side itself. Which at this point I think it's still darkish, but later on I will brighten the entire thing using the layer modes and just changing the entire values of the entire illustration and everything, and I don't know why I'm growling at you right now. So after I do add the shadows, the pink shadows down on a multiply layer, I do add a subsurface scattering, which is that red line which divides where the light and shadows meet. But instead of doing that with the usual overlay layer, I didn't want it to be too pronounced, so I just did that on the multiply layer itself while using a brighter, more saturated hue, or more brighter and saturated, shade of the same color probably. Then I added 2 types of highlights, one in pink and one in yellow to really pronounce that a bit more and make it more apparent, I guess. And soft shading with an airbrush to add more dimension as well. I also highlighted the clothes again, which is something I don't usually do anymore, which is, I think, what I did also back in 2021, 2022, which is why this entire thing reminded me a lot of those years, along with the use of soft and sharp shadows, right? In Tigra's case, I feel like she could have stayed without them, since I want Tigra... Wait, what am I saying? Oh yeah, highlights. Jesus Christ, I forgot totally of mentioning that thing. So, other than highlighting the clothes, I also add highlights into the eyes, which is something that I don't usually do anymore a lot of times, because I want all my characters to look sort of insane, like I do, but we don't talk about that. I don't usually add highlights to the eyes. The most that I add in sense of highlights are the circles with 2 lines, which I feel like is a very important part of my art style at this point. It's such a minuscule detail that I think that no one notices because of how small it is, but I just feel like it's important in my style at this point. In Tigra's case, I feel like she could have, stayed without them, since I want her to have the crazy-eyed look. It would benefit her more in that sense, to really convey that. I didn't do that this time because I was really trying to follow the top-tier anime art style skilled artists sort of look. And I added some hair strands for more interest and realism to the hair. I didn't overdo it like I usually do, because usually I add a lot of that, and this time around I didn't. If I had more patience, okay? Like these top-tier level artists, I would have spent more time rendering the fur of Tigra and whatnot, but even I have my limits when I'm doing studies, okay? And I'm not going to put myself through that, because that is a hassle. Now, Mew in the corner there is supposed to look stupid and simple to give a cuter, more cartoony and goofy look to the whole drawing. It makes it so that she doesn't blend in with the overall drawing as well. Can you believe that this is actually the first time that I draw Mew digitally? Tigra has many drawings from 2020, plus this last time I drew her ever, which is a sketch I published online in 2021, but it was drawn in the midst of 2020. While Mew, I ever only drew traditionally. My girl has not even one single full drawing. The thing is that I only sketched her traditionally too. I never actually made like a full illustration with her traditionally, which is something that I used to do. I have my folder series for that if you want to see those. But I don't know, I just never drew her. What also surprises me is that I still like their overall designs from back then. I did try changing it in the midst of 2020, which I disliked, and then proceeded to never draw them again after that. But their first designs, well, not really first designs, since we don't talk about 2015, 2014, okay. But their overall designs from when I became a furry, they still really work. Mew is supposed to have the schoolgirl look to her with a touch of sweetness, which that bow adds, and the color, the pinker color and whatnot. Or better saying, the brighter colors. While Tigra's supposed to look cute and menacing in this all-black outfit, sort of robber style, while both of them hold their code symbols on them at all times. I don't know, it really works for them. There's still designs that I really like, and it just surprises me since, the overall story is very cliche and bad. But their designs, those are actually good. What I find funny though in this story, because it's so full of cliches. Why and how do the townspeople never connect that the people wearing the symbols on them at all times are somehow connected to the murders? Some type of clue must have been left behind. They're not that clever, I don't believe so. Knowing myself back then, I'm sure that they weren't that clever. But sure, right, young people logic, understandable. Tigra's supposed to have this big eye symbol on the back of her cropped hoodie too, that is covered by her hair. So it's very obvious something is going on. So going back again to the topic of top tier anime style rendering. Did I get anywhere near the level that I wanted to achieve? I don't think so. I feel like there is a detrimental difference between my overall way of drawing that just can't get that feeling right, or I'm doing something really important wrong. I even added the soft lip shape instead of my usual Kim Possible lip look, and did the lined shadow on the nose and all. Plus tried adding that blushy shadow that the top tier level of skill artists add. with highlight and all. Plus I use harsh line art, something that I don't use, harsh, sharp line art and everything. It just doesn't look that way that I thought it would. But I still feel like there's something missing. I must be missing something. I don't know what. But I feel like my entire art style is just way too different to fit that sort of look, which is odd, since I also draw in an anime art style, so I would think it would fit, right? But I've learned a lot with this about patience and cleaning. I don't tend to spend so much time on one drawing by itself because I lose interest very fast, and I can't sit with a drawing for that long. That's how I would become one of those artists with 50,000 whips. But I feel like there is a good balance to be found in between both my own painterly style and the ultra clean art style. Will I apply my learnings to my own future drawings? We'll see about that as well, just like with my story. Now, going back to the story, because I'm wavering and sliding and moving between both topics this video. In a future video, I want to show you how I organize the stories of my characters, because I want to organize them in a specific way for which I never have the time for, so I'm making time for it and taking you along with me, because I feel like you could also benefit from some of those ideas. Look, it's going to be fun, okay? Something you can apply to yourself in a way, or it could inspire you for an idea of your own. We'll see, but it's going to be an interesting one, okay? And then you'll be able to find all my story stuff in one place and be able to read a synopsis of it maybe, and in what status it is, whether it's in development, whether it's still in QE? Look, it's being made or not, okay? Let's just put things straight up like that. I feel like with where we are, social media-wise, artistically, it is crucial for us to show our own passions and projects and really show what we are capable of and focusing on our own niche interests, which a lot of times include our stories, I feel like. So I want to build that with our little community here. We are lore lovers in this silly cult after all, or at least I'd like to believe so. So the finished result looks really nice. I'm really happy with how it turned out overall. It has a believable, lively look to it, but I still feel like I'm missing something from the top tier anime art style skills artists. If you know what it is that I'm missing, let me know down below and I might try this again. But overall, as you know how I always end these, right? I hope you have a nice day and night, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!